back to A Well-Designed Business. My name is LuAnn, and I'm so glad you found this podcast. Together with my husband Vince and our partner Bill, we have grown our company WindowWorks from the ground up. So I know and I understand the challenges you face in running your interior design business. I also know that your talent alone isn't enough to ensure your success. So on this podcast, we talk about strategies and practical steps to help you grow your business. But make no mistake about it, we have our share of fun here too, mixed in with those aha moments that I love so much. This isn't fluff. Nobody has time for that. Whether you are a new interior designer or a seasoned designer, I am here to help you create and to manage the kind of interior design firm that you dream of. It's straight talk and it's action. Are you ready? Let's get started. Hi, welcome to A Well-Designed Business. Today, Rydhima Brar, principal of R Terior Studio, joins me. Rydhima came from a corporate background before she launched her second career in design. That was just 2 years ago at the beginning of the pandemic. But already, Rydhima has become a force to be reckoned with. She's been featured in Vogue Arabia, Lux, Architectural Digest Mideast, Elle Decor, Forbes, The Wall Street Journal, and more. She was also part of the Kaleidoscope Project, a unique designer show house that featured talented designers of color, including Gail Davis, Rashida Gray, Rio Hamilton, Denise Guadalupe Rojas, and Shanae Richards, all former guests of this podcast. How fun is that? Rydhima has taken a unique journey to design. Not only is it her second career, but her path started in Kuwait, included a New York culture shock, and eventually ended in design, tied all the way back to her original roots. Today, she's going to talk with us about this journey, her story, and her success. Before we get to that, I'd like to take a moment to thank our show sponsor, My Doma Studio. My Doma Studio is your complete designer toolkit, the place for you to manage all of your projects, from time tracking to communication to product approvals, so that you can free your time to focus up on your business and serve your clients, right? Get started today and save 20% off your first 3 months at mydomastudio.com/a well-designed business. All right, let me introduce you to Rydhima. Hi, Rydhima. Thanks so much for joining me on A Well-Designed Business today.
Thank you so much for having me,
Oh,
LuAnn.
Rydhima, I am so looking forward to this conversation. First of all, I am a person of insane curiosity. That's number one. And number two, I just have this fascination with the Middle East, and I love being able to have a conversation with someone whose background and culture is so 180 degrees different from my own experiences. And reading about you and also our little conversation off air, I know that you know, because you told me you listened to the podcast, that I don't often ask people to tell me about their origin story for design. But I do think that your origin story does impact your business journey in design. So would you start us off by just telling us a little bit about that and your upbringing and all of the things that brought you there?
Absolutely. So I am Indian by heritage, but born and raised in Kuwait, in the Middle East. My parents moved there in the 70s to literally start their life. And we are a small family, born and raised there. And as I was growing up, my father is in the construction business. I was very much exposed to the different facets, different architecture, different culture, whether it was the Kuwaiti malls that you visit, whether it's Kuwait University, whether it's a doctor's office. In every location, in every space we went, there was something that was very opulent and elevated about the space, whether it was the stones, the materials that they use, the fabrics, the art, and just the infusion of the Arab and Middle Eastern culture in the design. And it's something that was just very normal and natural for me to assume that this is how design was, and this is just the way, places are
Could you imagine now that you live here, right?
Yeah, exactly. And to me, that was very normal. It was just a part of the process, and part of the design. And my father being in the construction space from time to time, we would visit construction sites with him, and look at and see how things were being built ground up. And so it, again, as I mentioned, it was just a very common and normal thing to observe and see everywhere. But anyways, fast forward, growing up in an Indian family, as far as your career path goes, you sort of you're expected to go through the traditional route, whether it's of being a doctor or getting into business or becoming a lawyer. The very promising career lines, I guess I would say. And so I chose the path of getting into business. And so Kuwait in general, or in general the Middle East back then, did not have a lot of universities in terms of further education. So as an expat, you would get you would complete your education up till the 12th grade, and then you would have to decide where in the world do you want to go to
Mm.
continue your further education. So literally the world was the oyster. I have friends who went to India, who went to Australia, went to the UK, came to the US. So in my case, I decided to come to the US. We have family here as well, so it was just one of those things where it made sense to come to the US to continue my further education. And so at that point, I decided that I would go down the path of marketing and
Mm.
finance. So fast forward, I'm here, in Buffalo, New York, from Kuwait, the hot desert of Kuwait. I go to Buffalo, New York, the coldest city in the U.S., for my undergrad, having never been there, by the way, to very very sharp and different experience. Finish my degree there. I don't know how,
I
but I
can't
somehow
even
managed to.
imagine the culture shock of Kuwait to
Oh, oh,
Buffalo, New York.
yes,
It's
it
not even
was.
like you went to
It was.
Miami, you know?
Yeah. You
Right?
would think, right? But no, no, I went to Buffalo, New York. Got it all out of my system. I had never seen snow my
Oh,
entire life, so up until that point, so I decided to go and live in
oh
snow.
my goodness.
But it was a great experience. Got my degree in business, and then right after that, started my career in corporate America. I was in the banking field for a long time, for almost 10 years. My work took me to Delaware, from Delaware to San Francisco, and then eventually to Los Angeles, which is where I am right
Mm.
now. In that time frame, build my career, but there was always something, that was missing, even in my corporate life that I was doing, whether it was product management or um, marketing analytics. I was always looking for a creative outlet in my
Mm.
work. I would try to see if I can switch to internally to a department that does more creative work, get into the design side of things. But, it's not very easy to make those switch, that type of a switch and transition. And then but I still pursued it. But then on the back end, I was always fascinated by the world of
Mm.
design. And when we moved to LA and we bought our first home, that was my first baby in terms of my first quote unquote
Mm.
project, was my own place. And I enjoyed it. I
Here
enjoyed it
comes the bug.
thoroughly.
Bit you right in the butt, right?
Yes. Oh, he did. I was sitting up to like 2, 3 a.m. almost every other night to find that perfect credenza, to find that perfect, our wall piece,
Mm.
or so, if you will. And I enjoyed it
Mm.
thoroughly. And then in that time frame, I also happened to make a visit back home to Kuwait, and decided that I wanted to bring some of the pieces of my childhood back into my own
Mm.
space and use it in my design. And so when I visited back home, I grew up with fa- fabulous rugs in our own
Mm.
home. And so that was the one thing I wanted to do, is I wanted to get a couple of rugs from there. I wanted to get some artwork from there, and I wanted to get my drapery done there. I have seen very gorgeous, amazing drapery and designs and
Mm.
patterns and fabrics and trims there. And so, not something that I was finding very easily available here at the time. Again, this is me being this was like me being a
Right,
novice,
right.
not a designer. So I didn't have the right resources or places to go and see where I can find the actual drapes. And the ones that I did go, they were, it felt like it was costing me a lot of money for my
Mm.
space. So I decided to go back home and get all of that done, custom, and brought it back over here. And finally, when my space was done, there was a lot of appreciation and adulation that I received, where they were like, "Wait, did you hire a designer for your
Mm.
space? Where did you get this rug from? Where did you get this sofa from? Where did you get, a lot of the questions." that started to flow in, which led to, hey, you should consider this, as a full-time career. You're so good at this, and looks like a lot of this comes to you
Mm,
naturally. And that was when that instinct, as you mentioned, the
mm.
bug. Said, well, it sounds amazing. It sounds like so beautiful and very romantic at that point. But who's going to leave a corporate job, a six-figure salary, to pursue this, and not even knowing how would I even pursue this, or where to even begin? It's very
Intimidating,
scary,
right?
really very intimidating and terrifying to be like, would this be the biggest mistake of my
Right.
life, where I would just quit this and not know where to go and how to start, and what if it doesn't work out? All of the what
Right.
ifs, where they're just going in your head. And the biggest, again, being so used to having a comfortable life, a steady paycheck, and a very fancy
Right.
lifestyle.
And also all of the status that goes along, both internal
Absolutely.
pride and external acknowledgement of the level where you achieved in your career at that point. Right?
Yes.
That's
Yes.
also a part of it. I'm curious, at this point in time, people are telling you that you have talent, people are saying you should do this, and you're daydreaming a little bit about it, but are you saying it out loud and having conversations with your husband about it? And is he saying, hey, whatever you think? Or are you not having conversations? Or is he like, are you out of your mind, lady? Like, where's that?
No, it started with daydreaming, and then because of the appreciation I was receiving, all the appreciation I received in front of my
Mm,
husband, to be honest. And so he would tag along in the conversation saying, yeah, this is absolutely something you should
mm.
pursue. But then eventually, when I sat down with him to talk about this, and I'm like, look, if I really want to do this, first of all, is this for real? Are
Are
you okay
you,
with
yeah,
this? Or
just talking,
what are
or are
your
you
thoughts?
serious?
Are you serious about this? Because it would be a huge sacrifice on my end, right? At least in the
Mm-hmm.
beginning, in terms of how we would run our household. But at the time, we didn't have any kids. And so he felt very strong about it. And he said, look, you're so passionate about this. It lights up your
Hmm.
face. And he's like, I don't see that, ever when you're talking about your
Finances.
real job. Exactly, when your real job, or you're just, so in many cases, yes, you get excited about certain things, but at the end of the day, I see that you're just not, that you don't have that
Mm,
glow. So isn't it worthwhile, especially if you know what it is, to pursue
mm.
that? So that's when the conversation got going. But as you mentioned, I had an ego as well, where I'm just like, I don't know if I'm just, what am I
I
doing
mean, it's
here?
hard.
Is
It's
this something?
hard. You've
But
got something that's solid and real and true and in your hand, and exchanging it for a leap is not easy.
exactly. And mind you, I'm not, in my 20s at this point. So, it's like, okay, I'm after 10 years of corporate life, I'm halfway through not halfway, but pretty deep into my career path here. Is this the right time to do this? But then that's when, you have these conversations with other folks as well, whether even some other friends and family, when they're like, it's never going to
No,
be a right
that's right.
time.
They're right.
If you want to do this, you do it now rather than
Mm,
regretting it 5 years from now, saying, oh, I should have done it, 5 years
mm-hmm.
ago, or I should have done it when the time was right. But I was still being a bit stubborn, to be honest, at that time as well. And I was trying to see if I could, do it side by side. So let me keep my day job and let me get some courses, at least get some foundational work done, and then see if I can do two things at once. And once this picks up, let me leave my corporate job. I thought it was a sound plan, to do this, both ways, and really giving it my all. But the universe had other plans for me. It conspired in a very different way. Things happen in a very different way. We were trying to get pregnant at the time. I started my IVF journey. Uh, and I was fortunate enough that I did get pregnant pretty quickly um, during that process. But the pregnancy was a rough one, which led to me being hospitalized, and my daughter being born 2 months
Mm,
early. And she was in the NICU for a little over a month. And so, with all of these things combined, I quit my corporate
mm,
job, and that was for personal reasons, where I needed to just stay at home, wanted to care for my daughter, care for myself, even. As the world just turned upside
mm.
down, and not in it was a bit of a stressful and a scary way when it turned
Right.
upside down. That whole journey was a bit terrifying. But during that time when I was home, that is when I would say, in a way, the rebirth sort of happened. And that's sort of even the ethos of my companies, in a way, it's sort of a rebirth, where I gave birth to my daughter and I gave birth to my business.
Mm.
That was when I decided to, really slowly but surely pursue my passion. It was a way for me to sort of remove myself from this fear and anxiety and get into a place of
Mm.
calm, when I would, look at design magazines, or, try to study a little bit about design and understand the whole process. It became a place of, a place of refuge. And that sort of, that was when the whole my journey into this world of design began. I started to take a few courses and get some foundational knowledge going. I was able to get a part-time job with a designer, assisting her, and I also got a job at a local art gallery. They did a lot of hospitality projects and they worked closely with bigger interior design firms. Um, for instance, the art that you see in the hallways and the hotels and corporate offices. So that's the type of
Mm.
work they did. So between the two, I was able to get a good amount of exposure, both for residential design and commercial design. Understanding floor plans, etc. Specifying things, getting in touch with artists, working with vendors. So it was a very hands-on experience that gave me all the knowledge, at least at that time, to get
Mm.
started. And the confidence. The biggest thing was the confidence that, okay, now that I have this, I figured out, my first trip to PDC happened at the Pacific Design Center through that job. So, oh, this is how designers,
Right.
source. So all of the basic knowledge sort of was on the job. I came to a point where I felt very happy about, what I was doing. I was starting to get approached for smaller projects, and one thing led to the next, and I decided to set up my shop in March of
Aw,
2020.
you and your crystal ball there.
Yes, exactly. I had these grand plans of what was going to happen. 2020 was going to be my year. And then comes the pandemic. So that was an interesting point in time to start my
Mm.
business. But I mean, I was fortunate enough. I literally got my space photographed before the
Mm.
shutdown in LA happened. And so at least I was very grateful for that, that I at least got my
Yes.
my place photographed, because I used my place as my first project, as many
Sure.
designers
Yes.
do. uh, got it photographed, got it, put it up, and I was fortunate enough to get it published and get it featured in Apartment Therapy. It was a house tour uh, through Apartment Therapy, and that sort of launched me into the world as a designer. I started to get calls, inquiries about projects, and here we are today.
What a story. What a journey. All the things. I mean, it just is something else. And what's interesting is in talking about the the insecurity or the second guessing about leaving the corporate job to do something like this, and then when the personal crisis happens, it's okay, well, that's just off the plate now. I can't do this
Oh,
job anymore. I don't want to
okay.
do this job, whatever the words were. But it was like the now it became it was worse to be doing that job, right, you know what I'm saying, right? It
Yes.
just
Yes, it
yeah.
was. It absolutely was. And yeah, you're absolutely right. The insecurities, the fear of the unknown, all of that just dissipated when, you're holding this baby who was two
Oh,
pounds at birth. And you're looking at her and you're like, of course, I don't care about anything right
right,
now. This is what I have to
right,
focus on. And all of those insecurities are
that's
just
right.
gone, and you're just focusing on that and just hoping and praying everything goes well. But in that phase, when you're sitting in the NICU, or at that time, I was sitting in the NICU, and I would spend hours and hours there while I would care for her. But in between those in between windows, when I would get up just to get a refresher or so, I would have a bag of magazines with me,
Mm,
flipping through the pages just to get my mind off
yes.
of things. And it was literally, as I said, a way for me to get through that time, my postpartum time, and just brought a smile in my face and just made me think about something other than the fears and the anxieties that I
Right,
had.
right, right, right. It's like a distraction to what was so heavy
Yes,
and so serious, right, with you and your baby. Yes.
yes,
So
yes,
interesting,
exactly.
right? And then now your brain starts to swirl on your upbringing and all of the design that you were always exposed to, and your father and his construction firm. And it's
Yes.
like, whoa, it's all coming together, right?
Yes, it became a full circle, literally a full
Mm-hmm.
circle. And that was the fun part. So even with the apartment therapy feature that I had, there were elements of, home in my design. And even, when they did a post on Instagram and things like that, I had those questions about, where is that piece from, or what is that looking like? Like I had, for instance, there's the Kuwait Towers. It's a monument in Kuwait, one of the scenic destinations that you would go to if you were to ever visit. But I had those towers in brass, and it was sitting on a shelf, and it was in one of the photographs. And the question was either what is that, or I had folks from Kuwait being like, hey, I had a thumbs up to it,
Oh,
saying that, oh, you're featuring that in your design, and it looks so cool. So, and again, it was a bit of my story that I just said with one or two things, representing home or my design. And then there was a small little box which is from India, which was my grandmother's, which was given to my mother, where she actually stashed her her tobacco.
ah,
And it's a silver box. And so yeah, there was a question around that too. And but it was just the way I just set it up, it looked like a gorgeous piece sitting on the top of my bar. And people loved it, in terms of, hey, that's such a cool piece to just have there, or where did you get that from? And I'm like, well, this is a family
yes,
heirloom.
yes, yeah.
So that sort of led to a lot of my design style and aesthetic, in a way, where there's this whole element of opulence, texture, fabric, materials, layering, having a very curated feel. Because again, Kuwait is a melting pot. Where I was raised, lot of expats come there to start their careers. They spend 20, 30, 40, 50 years even. My father, my family, we're in the 50 years, stage right now, that they've been there. And so you have people coming from all over the world, to make money. And so when they're doing their space, when they start, when they move into a home or so, that's how kind of the whether it's intentional, or like but from a designer's point of view, or whether it's just, people just making their houses look pretty, that's just the way it is, where you have all these pieces from home,
Mm,
or wherever your travels are, whatever it is, you bring it all
mm,
home, and you're putting it in a curated way. And these are all conversational starters, because when you're in a city where everybody is from different places in the world, those are the conversation
mm,
starters. You walk into a and you see, where is this beautiful art piece
mm,
from, or where is this rug from, or where is this throw from, or the conversations start. They end up being conversation starters, and that's how people get to know each other. And there's a lot of storytelling that goes into everybody's home and their
mm.
spaces.
Nice.
And again, that was a very innate thing that I grew up with. I again thought it was, normal, part of the package. And when I started my design journey here, I noticed that was not how things were done, or everybody, it was a very different process for everybody. The few designers that I spoke with, even when I was interning with this designer, we talked about these things, and it was very it's interesting the way that it's done over here, where it's more about, how can we make your space more functional for you, how can we make it look pretty, of
Mm-hmm.
course, but function, how can we resolve this issue. It's solution oriented to a certain
Mm,
extent. Or if you have the disposable income, yes, it's about, making the place look stunning and gorgeous, inspired by certain places. But I wasn't seeing this
mm-hmm.
story of, your story. What is your journey? What about you can we incorporate in your space that makes it truly unique to
Mm,
you? What can we, do to the design so that it can be a conversation starter from the moment a family, a friend, or anybody walks through your doors? How can we have that aha moment, of, what it is about you that makes this place so
mm.
special?
Well, and it's funny because I would have to say to you, even in the 6.5 year journey of the podcast, of over the 800 interviews, I have seen a turn in that. Even like
Hmm.
it's different. More designers in the last year and a half have talked about the feeling in a space, the way their
Mm-hmm.
client wants to, feel in the space, the way the space supports their frame of mind, their mental health, their well-being, as opposed to, like you said, the functionality of the space, solving a problem. How are we going to see the TV and play chess,
Mm-hmm.
or something, you know? Yeah.
Exactly.
And it just
Exactly.
is it's a tide turning, and it either, look, I don't, I'm not a philosopher, so I don't know if it was on its way already and the pandemic just pushed it along with people being at home and
Yes.
really, I mean, we know that that happened. We know that by all of us
Mm-hmm.
just being in our house under lock and key for multiple weeks and months for at a time, it made us look around. I mean, I even redecorated some things. And then that's, like, if
Yeah.
LuAnn
Yeah.
changed something in her house, she was locked in and was like, all right, let's do
All right.
something.
What are we doing
Exactly.
here? Yes. Something needs to change.
Right.
Something's
Yeah,
got to change. Yeah.
exactly.
This is not working.
Exactly. I mean,
Yeah.
that's like the epitome of, oh, okay, there is a movement here.
Exactly.
but but the
Exactly.
thing
Right.
is, I think that like I said, it might have been on its way, and maybe designers were at the forefront of it. But then when you have your average garden variety bear like me, that's even like saying, huh. I've been looking at the same, bedroom for 8 years. Maybe we should do
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
So, but it is
Yeah.
it is a change now, and it's coming. But I love that your perspective is that you didn't need a pandemic for this to be. This was part of your cultural upbringing in regard in your relationship to design and story and family and space and all of that, right? Mm-hmm.
Yes, yes. It was something it ingrained in me from the very
Mm-hmm.
beginning. And as I said, I just thought that was how it was supposed to be or was
Right.
normal. Only to come here and realize, well, that's not how it is. Even though the places look
Yes.
stunning, you see beautiful designers doing amazing things. But then, there was that one piece that I was like, wait, but what is it special about
Mm-hmm.
this place, that I can tell the story. And I started this journey pre-pandemic. And so with the few clients I had at the time, I would ask them these questions, which are pretty intimate
Mm-hmm.
questions. And fortunately the clients, they engaged and they entertained my questions and answers, but it was a process. I had to, be very careful and tread right, carefully to not, cross any
Right.
boundaries when I'm asking them certain questions about their life or their story or their history, or is there anything they would like to incorporate. So a fun way that I started to have this conversation with them was, well, tell me, is there a space, or is there a place that you've been to, you've traveled to, whether it is the Amalfi Coast, or a restaurant right around the corner, a bar. It could be a dive bar for all
Right.
I care. But is there a place that you go to that you look forward to because it gives you a certain feeling that you love and you look forward to? Because that is the place that I want to emulate, or at least a part of that place, or get inspiration from those places into your home. So if you're talking about their dining space or a bar, if they had, um, what is what's your favorite restaurant,
Mm.
or what's the place that you would like to create an atmosphere of in this place, whether it's from the colors, the textures, the palette. It could just be a light fixture,
Mm-hmm.
that looks similar to what they have there, but how can we bring that space here? If it's a living room, or if it's your study, again, are there any specific locations you've been to? If it's your bedroom, is it a hotel that you've stayed at, the room that you just absolutely loved, and you would be like, oh, when can I go there again? Why not bring that room
Right.
to your primary
Right.
bedroom? So these are the conversations I would try to questions I would always have with the clients, and trying to really dig a little bit deeper into what their choices are. So with one of my clients, we talked about Italy, and we were designing their primary bathroom, and the conversation led to having this gorgeous mural wallpaper,
Mm.
in their primary bath, because to her, she's like, this is my place. I have 4 kids. This is my space, and this is where I would like to feel transported to, in my soaker tub,
Right.
and shut the door and no
Right.
kids
And
allowed.
I'm a single woman again, and I don't know anybody's last
Yes.
name in this house but mine.
And this takes me back to my honeymoon when we were in Italy, And so yes, so we transformed the primary
Right.
bathroom into that
Nice.
space. And that's what makes me happy. And even now, when you check in with the clients, hey, how's everything going? And them saying, oh, I love my
Mm.
bathroom, or I love being here, that just makes me so happy to hear that that they're actually enjoying the space the way we had
Mm-hmm.
intended for
Mm-hmm.
them.
So good. So good. So I have two things that I want to make sure that we cover before I let you go, Rhythma. The first is I want to make sure we talk about the Kaleidoscope Project. And so you're going to tell me if one leads to the other. But the second is seriously, lady, you are in business, under 3 years. And looking at your website, you've been featured in Architectural Digest, Interior Design, Veranda, Arabia Vogue, Elle Decor, House Beautiful. Like, what the heck already with this, okay? And 30,000 followers on Instagram. I mean, this is. It's not that I've not met any designers that have done a, straight shoot shot like this, but it is not a typical trajectory in a 3 year period to have this kind of accolades, under your belt. So tell us, I mean, is it, well, most of these things happen and then this exposure got the invitation to the Kaleidoscope? I mean, the Kaleidoscope was only last year, so all of this can't be a result of that,
Yes.
right?
Well, part and parcel, I would
Okay.
say yes and
Okay.
no. So I was fortunate, as I mentioned, I was fortunate enough to get some press prior to the Kaleidoscope, um, with starting my own house tour. And then I sort of approached a lot of the editors myself. I tried to do things on my
So you
own
bootstrapped
by saying,
Veranda,
okay,
Architectural
I did.
Digest, and Elle Decor.
Uh, I bootstrapped Forbes. I bootstrapped our apartment therapy. I bootstrapped a couple of other vendors, a couple of other publications, smaller publications prior to that, but those were the publications that led me to the
Okay.
Kaleidoscope project, which then led to some of these
Nice.
national
Okay.
publications. So, yes,
Okay.
it's a combination of the two. And now from the Kaleidoscope, there is a lot more interest. And so that led to my Vogue Arabia feature, my Architectural Digest Middle East. Those are more profiles on, again, my upbringing and just having roots growing back home. So it was really nice to be sort of covered and featured
Nice,
regarding that.
very nice. So tell us a little bit for anybody that's not familiar with the Kaleidoscope. Of course, I remember when it happened and I followed along. My good friend Gail Davis was part of it. And so I remember watching her. She would do a lot of
Yes.
stories on it. And of course, I knew several of I think Rashida Gray might have been in it, right? I mean, if
Yes.
I put the list in front of me, I
Yes.
feel like I knew three-quarters of the designers personally that were involved. So for anyone who isn't familiar with it, tell us about the Kaleidoscope Project.
So it's the Kaleidoscope project is one of my proudest achievements. I'm so grateful that I was, able to be a part of it. It's a project where it's a whole different take on a show house. It's a bed and breakfast set up in Massachusetts in the Berkshires. Um, the owner who purchased the property, it was built in the 1700s and the 1800s. Obviously knew he had to, take the place under and, have a major renovation to bring it up to date. And he went around, contacting some of the local designers there, and Amy
Mm.
Schwartzberg. She's one of the main project leads actually, and she was the designer whom he approached, and she does a lot of
Mm.
hospitality projects. Um, and so when she was approached with this, she had this idea, and there was a lot that was going on at that time. If you remember, early last year and into May, with the whole
Mm.
George Floyd situation that happened, and there was just a lot happening even within the
Mm-hmm.
design community. And she felt very strongly about this, and in a way, and she wanted to do something that would, something small or big, something that could, start a way and have a bit of a change and an
Mm-hmm. Do her
impact in a
part,
way.
right?
And
Everybody does
so
their part,
do
and it
her
makes a
part.
difference.
Exactly, exactly. And it was her brainchild with Patty
Mm.
Carpenter, who we've also,
Outstanding
I'm
lady.
sure you
Yeah.
know
Oh
of.
my goodness, what a powerhouse.
Yes, yes. Them two came together with this whole idea of inviting 21 designers of color to design the space, and each of us and each designer would have a room um, to design, and some of them, and there was a common area. You have the restaurant, you have the reception, but anyways, all of the spaces were designated to 21 designers of color, and we had the freedom to do whatever we wanted in terms of the design. There were no rules or restrictions around how we wanted to design our space. um, and once the word spread, they were able to get
Mm.
sponsors to provide material. It was such a special cause, that even the industry sort of came together, with sponsorships and providing furniture and materials and paint and wallpaper, whatever you have it. They all came together. And again, mind you, this was in the wake of the right in this was
Yeah.
the thick
Yes,
of
I
the
remember.
pandemic. So there were definitely lead time issues and stock issues and a lot of other things that were happening around that time. And so despite all of that, everybody came together to really bring this place to life. And it was such an honor to be in that, be, standing, rubbing shoulders with some of the industry's
Mm.
best designers that I had ever, again, I had only dreamed of, or I had followed their work in some of these national publications, and to, be in the same room as them. And but when it came time to my own space, I just went in with this whole idea of, I am my own client. What would I want to do in this space? And if I were visiting the Berkshires, what sort of an experience would I like to have for myself? And that was the question I was trying to answer in my design. And, one thing led to the next. And it was this room that I doused in color and took inspirations, again, back from my heritage, my culture, that I wanted to bring into the space in a very unique and elevated way. And the result was something that was so well appreciated, and it was a very humbling experience to be in the same space as some of these amazing designers, and even for them to walk up to me and have a similar reaction to you, LuAnn, in terms of, wait, how long have you been doing
Right.
this for? And at that point, it had only been a year that I had been in the business. So they were like, wait, you just started last year? And they were just standing in my room and looking at me saying, this is something that we would expect from a designer who's been doing for 10 years or so. Like, this is amazing. The way you have used color and pattern and texture and brought in your story is gorgeous. And so it was very humbling to be in that space. And in a way, and the best part about that whole experience was, I designed my room remotely, fully remote. A lot of the other designers were on the East Coast, and so many of them were able to at least visit their space once or twice before
Mm.
install. So I was designing my room completely remote from LA, because at the time I wasn't thinking of traveling. I couldn't travel back and forth from here to Massachusetts frequently, and so everything was done remotely. I showed up a week before opening
Wow.
night, and I had 3 days for install. And that was when, as Tim Gunn would say, make it work. There was a major make it work moment when I was there, when I arrived, because again, there was a lot of construction involved. You're working with contractors. You go there and you're just like, oh my God.
Wow.
What is, certain things were done absolutely the way they should have been, and some things were not done the way it should have been. And so you're like, all right, this is it. We have a week to go. Uh, this is how it's going to be. So how can we make it work? And so, the camaraderie that I experienced there, and all of these designers, we were all in the same space. We are all in the same environment. I'm meeting everybody for the very first time, making new acquaintances for the very first time. And in the matter of hours, it was as if
Oh,
we knew each
wow.
other for years. And we're all helping each other out. I had some additional lighting that I couldn't use in my room. And then there's another designer who was having a tough time with his lighting. It didn't
Oh,
arrive on time. And again, here, we're like, what are we going to do? And it's like, here, I have two boxes sitting here. Will it work with your design? And we're trying to make things work. We're moving things around, staying up until 1, 2 a.m., trying to get things, set up for the opening night. And so it turned into this really fun experience, like Project Only for
wow.
designers. Except there was no fighting. Uh, backstabbing. It was just very, very, the community, it felt like everybody came together and everybody was rooting for one another. And we were all so happy for each other. And all of us toured each other's rooms. And I took notes from every single designer there in terms of how they did their space. And, there's some of the things I'm using now in my own
Wow.
designs, in terms of the ideas that I learned of how to, manipulate certain certain issues if you're having with the space, certain walls, and all of these different things. So it was such an amazing experience that it's a gift that keeps on giving. And just the fact that I was able to play my part. By the way, a lot of the proceeds for the first 2 weeks, it was set up as a show house. So all the proceeds from ticket sales went to
Mm.
scholarships for color to some of these top design schools that we have in the country. So that was another huge opportunity there that I was able to be a part of. And after the show house was done, it is fully it's working as a fully functional
Oh,
inn
wow.
as of right now. So if you were to ever visit the Cornell Inn in Massachusetts, please do stay in the Rhythma room, because that's what it and you get to experience it. You get to experience and experience my design, and it's been so exciting because a few people and folks who've actually gone and stayed there, they reached out to me on Instagram saying,
Oh,
"Hey,
isn't
we
that
stayed in your
fun?
room." And it was so very exciting for me to see a message come through like that saying, "Hey, we stayed in your room and we loved the experience and we love this design element that you had over here." So
Mm.
it's nice to have that. And it's such a cool
Mm.
take on a show house, where there's no tear down. From a sustainability perspective, things
Mm.
remain as is. So the future, you get to experiment with your design, you get to work with all these vendors that you normally may not be able to, and it stays there
Yeah,
for years
it's
to come.
it's it's was really, I remember it's so impressive. And what's so funny is, looking through the list again of the designers that were involved. I mean, of the 21, I know 12 or 13 of them personally. 6 or 7 of them have been on the show.
I would assume
Yeah,
you would know.
and
Yes,
I'm
exactly. I
looking
was
at
like, you would probably know
yeah, and I'm
80% of
looking at
them.
the list. I'm going, oh, well, I need to know these others. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yes, and we're all still very
No.
much in touch. We were recently in Las Vegas doing a panel, again for the Kaleidoscope Project. And so they've all, many of them are now my resources, and, people I go to when I have some tough questions or design decisions or client related issues, how do you handle a
Yes.
client or how do you handle this request? So it's turned into this amazing community, for a lot of us. And again, if you think of a show house in general, for a new designer such as myself, it would be hard to even think of participating or, being involved or included or even being considered. There's a huge financial intake from
Mhm.
what I've heard and understood that goes into it. But in this case, again, the vendors came in, everybody came in, and so I was able to participate fully and with such freedom to really have, show my work, show myself, show my style, and
That's
have a
amazing.
platform
That's
to.
amazing. That's so good. So they arranged for all of the vendors to donate the oh, that is
Yes, yes, everything was donated. Everything that you see over there was donated by the
wow.
industry's top uh, you know vendors. You had Benjamin Moore, we had the Shade Store, we had Korean company, we had Brizo.
Wow.
So many vendors. I'm just naming a handful of them.
Just having
um
that worked
yeah.
out for you, because of course any designer that's done a show house, they know that the idea is to go to the vendors and the brands for these things, but it's left to the designer to do all that negotiating, to lean on their own contacts and the people that they've done business with.
Yes.
And some people say yes to you and some people say no to you. And to for
Yeah.
I love that. I didn't realize that element of it, that the I guess that's
Oh yeah.
Patty and Amy that worked that out. Yes,
That
and
is
said,
Patty and
okay,
Amy. Yes,
yeah,
they worked that
smart.
out. And Liz Nightingale. Liz Nightingale was also part of the team with so the
Nice.
three of them, they worked it all out, gotten, and then we as designers were told, if you have any vendors that you guys work with regularly who would be interested, they had
Mm,
sponsorships for them as well. And so we could bring anybody that we wanted as well, provided
right,
they're willing to
right.
donate. They didn't want to deter from the fact that, oh, you don't want to bring your own materials and purchase and pay and make your room look fabulous. It was more about,
Everybody's playing the
again,
same.
having that purpose.
There's a point to
Everybody
this,
playing
that
the
we're
same. So in
giving
my
we're giving
yes, there's
our
a point.
goods and services, and so do the same or don't bother, because
Exactly.
we've got it covered.
So in my room, yeah. So in my room, for instance, I had Theodore
mm,
Alexander. They were really generous with their product for me, my room, because of my relationship with them. And Gracie Wallpaper did my bathroom, which has been featured in a lot of the publications that you will see. I told my personal story through the wallpaper. It was Indian wallpaper inspired by the Mughal times, and so yeah, and so I brought in some of my own elements in there again, but it was purely through the form of
nice, very
donations.
nice. So, last thing before I let you go. What would you look back on, Rhythma, and say something that you would like to share with someone listening now and any part of your journey, whether it was, understanding, how did you, a tip on bootstrapping those initial, PR opportunities, or, it's just the actual formation of the company and maybe an aha moment in, oh, okay, so I thought this would be great, but wow, this is hard. And I had to, learn this, or just anything that you can think of that was either a significant learning lesson or an aha that you're only 3 years in business, so I gotta have to ask you this in 15 more years, but in your first three, what would you say?
It's the first and foremost thing is, it is, if if you're, it is, if you're somebody who's considering a career change, it's something you definitely don't take lightly. You have to, you think about it in terms of how you want to pursue it. But a part of me also says, in my case, it happened, as much as of the planning I was trying to put into it, it just didn't work out that way. And you just learn to go with the flow, and you take it one day at a time. That was the approach I ended up taking, in terms of, all right, this is what I'm going to do, and what is the very first step I'm going to take
Mm,
regarding this. And you take it one day at a time. And I cannot emphasize more on that, because it can get
mm,
so overwhelming when you're trying to start this out, especially by yourself. You're moving into an industry where you have no connections
mm-hmm,
whatsoever. When I started, people advised, hey, go on LinkedIn and reach out to your network and see if you might get some help there. I look at my network, and it was full of tech, and
bankers.
yeah, bankers and the tech space, because I was in
Mm,
San Francisco. And like, there was no element of a creative person in my
right.
network at the time that I could reach out to. And so you're like, all right, I do not know anybody. How do I start this journey? And then so you just take it one step at a time, and you sort of go with the flow in terms of every opportunity that comes and presents itself to you, and you take a leap of faith, and you
Mm,
just try. You just keep trying until you find the right balance of, okay, should I join this Facebook group? Should I join, should I, and reach out. I cold called, and I reached out to several designers, and told them that this is what I wanted to do. Some of them, you know obviously did not respond, but there were a few who did, and that's how I got my internship, my initial internship. And in those situations, you put your ego out the door, you leave your ego
mm,
outside, and you do the internship like you would, no questions asked. And so there's a lot of that stuff, the ego, the pride, and things that you just put at bay for a little bit, and you just go with the flow and take it one day at a time as you try to figure out what the next step is. And when you're so determined to make it happen,
mm.
doors open. Things happen, opportunities come, people notice, people see. It's that energy that you put out there, and then things
Well,
come to
and
you.
that is the key right there. When you are determined to make things happen, I think of all the things that you said and all of the story that you shared with us, and we can hear exactly the things that you said, and we can imagine the things that you went through that were between the lines and filling in our own imagination. It comes right down to that sentence. When you are determined, then you make things happen,
Hmm.
because it's not a passive thing. Starting a business, it's not a, oh, this is a great idea, here it is on paper, and and then it just
No.
unfolds in front of you. It is that get up every
Yeah.
day and recommit to taking action, to being determined, to being undeterred, to believing in yourself, and to knowing you're worth it, right? Knowing that it was worth it, that you were
Yes.
worth doing this career, that you didn't have to, you
Yes.
could, look, you were going to go back to work after you and your daughter got on your feet. You're just too smart
Yes.
and too driven to not, okay? But you could have gone back to work in the finance and marketing field, right? I mean, you could have,
Yep.
right? And
Absolutely. I could
so,
have. I
yeah.
absolutely could have. And I would have walked in,
Yeah.
well, like, they would have
Yeah, they're
welcomed me
probably
back.
crying that you didn't come back.
Um,
you know?
yes, exactly. So that what is that exactly. But at that point, that was the pivotal moment where it was like, okay, I either I do this now or I don't, and you just whether it was the newfound courage, I don't know, being a new mom, hormones, whatever it was,
Mama bear.
here we are. Wow, exactly. It just took over, and you go. And there is a little bit of that again that comes from childhood as well. I didn't mention earlier, but as being born and raised in Kuwait, I was even there during the Gulf
Mm.
War, and so we had to pick up and leave overnight,
Oh,
and we stayed there during that time, during the first couple of months in that environment, living it day by day. And then we escaped, and we moved to we sort of went to India for a couple of years,
oh,
started fresh, not knowing what the
right.
future holds. Well, are we going to be settling over here forever, or are we going to go somewhere else? And I remember the way my parents were at the time in terms of figuring out things one day at a time. And what do we do? My father also was in business in Kuwait, and then for him to sort of again drop everything and start from
Mm.
ground up, in India. And then we were there for a while, but then once things were back to normal in Kuwait and the country opened up, it was like, all right, let's leave everything that we built for the past 4 years in India and let's go back to Kuwait because that's home.
Right.
We wanted to move
Yes.
back there, and you start ground up again. So starting from ground up, I guess, is has been a theme in for me at least. And you just yeah, you sort of as you mentioned, the rise of the phoenix in a way where you're just like, all right, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to whatever you do, be good at it and put your
Yeah,
100%
yeah.
towards
I
it.
I just love it. It's such an interesting story, and what you've achieved so far is nothing less than remarkable. And yeah,
Oh,
it
thank you.
really.
It means a
Well,
lot
I
coming from
mean,
you.
I don't know about all of that, but it just is. It is something. It is something to be proud of, and it'll be so fun to watch what you continue to create from it. If this is what you've done in 2.5, 3 years, so
Thank you.
yeah, no,
Thank
I
you so
appreciate your
much.
spending your time with us today, Rhythima. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank you so much for having me once again.
You know me. I don't often ask designers to walk us through why did you become an interior designer, right? But in Rhythmia's case, her roots are what laid that foundation and ultimately contributed to that scary leap from corporate finance to interior design. I believe that what she learned along the way, carrying her father's experience in construction, growing up in the environment of Kuwait with the ornate details of the buildings, and then coming here and seeing the difference in the culture when she came to the States. This all contributed to Rhythima's desire to be a designer, right? She knew that her role in banking wasn't satisfying her in the way that she wanted it to be. You wanted to satisfy that creative urge. But like so many, she was hesitant to throw away a six-figure salary, right? The success, the stability, and the achievements that she was having. I mean, that's you got to think twice about that, right? But then comes the experience with her new baby, and it changed her priorities, her perspective. It changed her life. And it gave her the space to dream and to realize and to think, what does she really want? She talked about the fear, the hesitancy to leave her job. We've heard this many times over the course of the podcast. It's never easy to make that decision. There's always fear and uncertainty in transition, okay? But when I think about designers like Mariana Zimmerman and, of course, Michelle Feeney of Floral Street, they both made the leap in their 50s. And it goes to show that it's never too late to start over. But there are other designers who made the change earlier in their careers, like Rydhima did, who were also already very successful in their corporate careers, which is the part that makes it hard to make the leap, right? The mental and the actual leap. But like Cheryl Luckett, Rashida Gray, Kelly Collier, Megan Moulton, Darla Powell, just like these designers did it, you can do it too if you have the determination and the passion, right? All of these ladies did it like Rydhima, and they shared their journey on the show. If you are considering changing careers into design, and that's why you've come to this podcast, and you need a major shot in the arm of, I can do it too, then definitely check out each of these episodes. Every single one of them shares their journey from going from one career into interior design. All of the shows will be in the show notes. Now, I find Rydhima's fast growth pretty remarkable. She's been featured in so many impressive publications, and it's easy to see why. She brings something very special to the table. The storytelling element that she talked about is definitely part of the secret sauce. Telling your story is what draws people to you. right? I say to you all the time, we expect you to do good design. And yes, maybe I may resonate with one designer's aesthetic over another, but it's telling your story that makes people want to learn more. And hopefully, when they learn more, that's when they will make the move to hire you. But you have to get them first drawn in with their story. Now, Jude Charles has been on my show 4 times. He is a master at teaching you how to pull your own story out of your own life and career. Because a lot of times we're like, well, I don't know what's so interesting, right? So if you are in that moment of, well, I don't know what story, I don't think I'm that interesting, then listen to Jude's episodes. You will not be disappointed. He actually walks you through step by step. He also has a book that he has put out on this, and he teaches the storytelling class at LU University. In addition to all this, he's an outstanding human and a heck of a smart guy. So those links will all be in the show notes as well. And then also we have this Kaleidoscope Project. First of all, I love that the mission of the organizers of the Kaleidoscope Project was to highlight the many talented designers of color in our industry. And having been honored to speak with so many of them on the show, it was super fun to see their participation in the rooms that they created. All right. And I also love that this particular show house, the Creative Spin, different from the typical designer show house event, right? This is a working bed and breakfast. How cool is that? After you've put all the work into creating an exceptional room for a show house, you have to watch it be taken apart. It's like heartbreaking. I've done it with designers where we've been, fortunate enough to do the window treatments at Kips Bay or, the Hampton Show House, different show houses, the Valerie Fun Show House. And you're just like, oh, no, it has to come down. Like, what are we going to do with it, right? But here, it's a bed and breakfast and it lives on. And you can actually go and stay in any of the rooms of any of the designers whose work you admire. I think that's so cool. Finally, my big takeaway from what Rydhima said about being in the Kaleidoscope Project was that sense of community and camaraderie that she enjoyed. The coming together and the sharing of ideas and helping each other adapt and adjust in the space leading up to opening night. That's powerful. We need that same sense of network and connection. We need to have others to bounce ideas off and learn from, peers that we can trust in all aspects of our business, right? And this is exactly the concept for our upcoming Power Talk Friday tour in High Point. On October 21st, 2022, in High Point, if your firm is doing multiple 7 figures, then we are gathering to specifically help you address the challenges that you face and help you build your community of peer designers who you can then develop the trust and the collaborative spirit with. All right. The opportunity to be in a room with like-minded people who you can open up to, seek advice from, and create relationships that last beyond the day itself is immeasurable. Quite frankly, it is. All right. In addition, during the day, you've got myself, my cousin Eileen Hahn, and the Vin Man is going to be there. So if you are interested in being in a room with people that you can speak to, talk to, learn from, and create a lasting relationship with, and your firm is doing $2 million or more, then please go to powertalkfriday.com to learn more and to register. All right. Thank you again, Rydhima, for sharing your story of determination and of how you made that leap and how you bring your roots into your design and you bring a little bit of that beautiful culture to the United States. I think it's pretty cool. And thank you tons for listening today. I do appreciate that you show up. I absolutely do value that you do that. Thank you. Decide to be excellent. Thank you for joining me today. This podcast is a production of LuAnn Nigara, Inc. If you want to know more about me, my books, or LuAnn University, go to luannnigara.com. And if you are interested in having WindowWorks help you with your next window treatment or awning project in the New York, New Jersey metro area, go to windowworksnj.com to learn more. Have an excellent day.